It's Wednesday evening, and you know that means that the 10-8's got something fucking hot on the stove. I am Zach from Filthy Philadelphia, bringing you another 10-8 round podcast, joined by the not caffeinated this week, but maybe rejuvenated by being live at the UFC down there in Orlando, John Boy in sunny Fort Lauderdale, Florida. John Boy, tell me about your weekend. Tell me it was everything you dreamed it would be.
I mean, we got after it, to say the very least. But there's always one little piece missing when the fight squad isn't fully assembled. And we need to get that into motion. But, I mean, can't complain. Amazing fights. We were cooking. We were cooking last week. If you go back, you can check the tape. I love that. We were on to something there. So let's keep that heat rolling into this UFC 282 pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And let's kick it off.
Yeah, the boys were cooking last week. The boys had something hot on the stove last week, and I'm here for it all day, every day. Couldn't agree more. In fact, I'm so distraught. I'm gonna have to hang on. There we go. I'm gonna have to
crack it.
I'm gonna have to calm myself down. I'm so fucking distraught I wasn't there. I was so depressed. I didn't even visit the 10-8 official sponsor Miller's Ale House for a Mountain Melt and a Hank's root beer. Couldn't do it. Couldn't bring myself to it.
Wow.
No, I just sat home. I did get Angelo's Pizza, though.
Okay.
I did get Angelo's Pizza. South Philly, 9th and Fitzwater. It was worth the hype. I'm going to say that. It was worth the hype.
That sounds like it'll suffice over a little bit of Miller's Ale House.
I mean, listen, the 10-8 loves Miller's. We love everything they've done for our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But Angelo's Pizza down South Philly, if you're in the neighborhood, stop on by. Had friend of the 10-8 pod, Timmy G, stop by. He might have some. I don't want to jinx it. He might have some fight news on the horizon.
Love that.
So get excited for that.
Good boy.
And before we do our takeaways, socials tell me that Mike from the Bronx had to take a little hospital trip today. So let's give a fucking big heartfelt shout out to Mike from the Bronx. We love you, brother. Get well soon.
Yeah, much love to Mike, man. Damn.
Fucking holidays are coming. 10-8 fans need us. They need a podcast. They need to be rejuvenated.
It's the only way to make the world right, really.
You want to just get down to business? You want to do some takeaways?
Yeah, we'll get into our 3 takeaways from Orlando, and then we'll tackle this stack card.
Let's do it. You want to start us off?
Absolutely. I was saying this in the lead up to Orlando, and I'm going to say it again. Matthias Nicolau at 125 pounds, 19-2, real deal. He's got a little bit of a fluke loss to Dustin Ortiz back in the day. He's rolling, man. I see kind of after Moreno and Figueiredo figure out the 4th one. I think he's going to come into play, and he's going to be fighting for gold in the very near future.
Yeah, I'd love to have something to add there, but no, that was just a statement victory on Saturday, I thought, over a really tough, really durable Matt Schnell. He got it done, starched Matt Schnell, looked good doing it. Schnell, the ever vigilant competitor, had to shave his head to make weight, and then Nicolau took care of business in the cage. But there's not much to add there. I think you're absolutely right. I think Nicolau's his stock is rising.
What do you got for me?
My first takeaway is that RDA does not deserve that fight with Conor. No. For the fans who didn't watch Orlando on Saturday, RDA had a neck crank on Brian Barberena, finished the fight as anticipated. My gut feeling proved to be incorrect. Brian Barberena did not stop another legend in his tracks. Thank God. RDA gets a win, hops on the mic, calls out Conor McGregor. And it's like, dude, come on. Know thy forum. Know where you are. Conor McGregor is talking shit with Dustin Poirier. He's talking shit with Nate Diaz. First of all, he's like 300 pounds of muscle right now. Like, you have to know how low you are on the line. How bottom you are in line there to get after it with Conor McGregor. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. You and Conor will be in your 70s before that fight gets booked.
Yeah.
It's somebody else.
It's like, let's have some situational awareness here. This is a broken record, though, with RDA. He's been calling out McGregor as long as I can remember. It's not a good look begging for the fight all the time. I get it. You want to get paid. That's why we're in the prize fighting game to begin with. But come on, not a shot in hell that RDA gets that fight.
And a good win over a tough, right? Maybe not the most talented, but a tough Brian Barberena. You take care of business in convincing fashion, but you can't think that a Brian Barberena victory unlocks the door to a Conor McGregor fight. That's not in the math equation here. That one of these things is not like the other. And RDA clearly has a little left in the tank. Don't waste it chasing a white whale, Ahab.
Yeah, I mean, he exploited what we knew Brian Barberena wasn't good at, and that was the grappling department. I mean, Brian Barberena was trying to fill in to fight, I believe, on this card or a next card. That's how little damage he sustained in Orlando.
This card. He wanted to fight Santiago Ponzinibbio.
Bingo. So it's like, come on, RDA. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, my guy.
Just wilding in these streets. What do you got next?
Sergey Pavlovich.
Oh, my God.
God damn.
Oh my God.
He looks good, man. He looks really, really good. I don't know a lot of guys are going to sign on the dotted line to fight him. Heavyweight needed some new blood, and man, they got it with Pavlovich. To take out Tuivasa like that, somebody who gave, Gane some issues, to do it that quickly, that brutally. Sergey Pavlovich, he's definitely on the radar now, if he wasn't already. And look for him to have a big fight possibly lined up down the road, especially with John Jones getting in the mix. He might be a guy that you're going to see in some big spots later on. So it'll be interesting to see if that pans out.
Yeah, Sergey Pavlovich is a remorseless Russian killing machine, which is what we suspected he was. It turns out we were correct.
Yeah.
Dude is just he's an absolute machine. Ran through Tai Tuivasa like a hot knife through butter, man. Really did. And I think and this is something that I've rung the bell on a few times on this podcast. I think we might be looking at a return to the age of the athletic heavyweight. I think we're looking at guys now who aren't coming in the cage with the big bellies and the big lunchbox hands throwing them hammers until somebody falls. I think we're starting to see guys with, big muscles and bad intentions stepping back in there. Guys who have, grappling or an incredible stand-up game. These throw and swing until we're breathless heavyweights are, I think, starting to get weeded out a little bit by some of the talent that's coming up in that division.
Yeah, I mean, look at Cyril Gane. There's videos of him on Twitter of him like tomahawk jamming a basketball. Like, you do not see that from 265-pound grown men. That is an impressive feat. Super skilled guys. It's the modern day and age of UFC, man, and the sport is growing.
I'm here for it, man. I loved the golden age of the UFC heavyweights. I really did. Yeah. I loved when you had big guy grapplers. I watch one a lot for that reason. The heavyweights they have over there, they got a lot of wrestlers, a lot of jiu-jitsu guys. I mean, that Buchecha, so obviously. So I'm here for it. I think, when them big boys get in there with bad intentions, I think that's peak MMA for me. As a big boy myself, I like to hold it down for big boy energy. So I'm with it. You ready for my number 2?
Let's hear it.
I think Roman Dolidze is that fucking dude. I think he is that fucking dude. And I'm going to tell you why. It's not the win. It's not who he beat. I think it was just how he did it that really kind of struck me a little bit. It is rare to see a calf slicer like that in MMA, but then to use that calf slicer and not fall down the trap of trying to force a submission, but instead use it to immobilize Jack Hermanson and pummel the shit out of him for 2 minutes is, I think it's a sign of good things to come. I think Roman Dolidze's stock should be on the rise. Hermanson was a tough customer for him. I think Hermanson is actually who we were going with going into that pay-per-view. So for Dolidze to get that dub, I think speaks highly of his stock. How'd you feel about that? How'd it look live?
Yeah, I mean, Dolidze is one of those guys. It's like he was getting beat early, from a technical standpoint. Hermanson had a way with a takedown and he was spotting him up. He's one of those guys that when you give him an opportunity to make a counter and you make a mistake, he's going to jump on it. Yeah, man, he's looked good. He's not coming off of a nasty knockout of Phil Hawes. Jack Hermanson was definitely a step up in competition. Huge. That was a huge dub. I mean, that's definitely the best win on his career, and it's going to set something up big. But I don't know if I'm ready to hop on that train just yet. I have in the back of my mind, I've seen the fight with Trevin Giles, where those two like traded for a while. That could have went either way. So I've seen him in spots with certain matchups. I want to see a little bit more from him. But man, that's a great win for Roman Dolidze.
Huge dub for Roman. Yeah, I'm getting ready to get on that train. I mean, I'd love to see one more fight, you know, another maybe step up in competition for him, although not too many more steps up he could take. I mean, Jack Hermanson was hovering around the middle top of his division. I'd love to see him take another step up though and see what else he's got in that bag of tricks, because that calf slicer was vicious, and that's tough to do. I mean, that's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
And then to utilize it to just pummel somebody like that is chef's kiss. What's your third takeaway, John Boy? What do you got?
I don't think Wonder Boy is going anywhere just yet. And I'm going to say it for this reason. It's going to come down to just MMA in general and matchups, right? Think about this. Stephen Thompson, Leon Edwards.
Would watch.
That would be, I think, a very closely contested bout, just basically based on the matchup, right? It all depends who's going to get that belt at the end of the day. If Usman gets the strap back, I think he's done. But Leon Edwards can hold on to that strap. I mean, we saw what Stephen Thompson did to top guys, Jorge Masvidal. He just has problems with the grappling. If the UFC chooses to take him the route of the grappler, the sky is the limit for Stephen Thompson. Even at 40 years old, he looked good. He looked fast. I mean, props to Kevin Holland for engaging in a gentleman's bout to, you know, hype the fans up. He didn't want to take it to the ground, and they traded, and Stephen Thompson looked good as he's ever looked, in my opinion.
Yeah, so we can have a fuller conversation. I'll jump in now with my third takeaway. I think we might be looking at the start of a decline for Kevin Holland. And I'll kind of lay out why. I think that gentleman's agreement was fucking stupid. I just think it's a fucking stupid thing to do. Stephen Thompson, by his own admission, last two fights he lost were to grapplers, because Stephen Thompson don't fucking grapple. That's a karate man. He ain't grappling anybody. It's not going to happen. So yeah, you want to be, you want to have a gentleman's agreement. You want to look like a cool guy in there. You want to refuse to take it down to the fucking ground. And then you got absolutely pieced up on the feet. I think that's a demoralizing way to go out. And then two, I think the injuries that Kevin Holland left with, internal and external, and by internal, I don't mean internal bleeding. I mean, any damage to sort of, that stick and move style. And then externally, the broken hand, it's going to take a while to heal that. It's a while that you're not training. And I think Kevin Holland did himself a huge disservice by not going to the ground, because I think he derailed his own progress. I think we were starting to see a Kevin Holland who had some stock that was really on the rise. Hamzat Chimaev notwithstanding, I think Kevin Holland had some stock that was on the rise. He had gotten, really heavily into his grappling base. Obviously, his on the feet was always, pretty good, that unorthodox Kung Fu style. I think this is going to derail Kevin Holland hugely, and possibly to the point where we're looking at a decline for Trailblaze to the top.
You know what I'm taking from this? You know who Kevin Holland kind of reminds me of? He reminds me of like Cowboy Cerrone a little bit, where it's like we know the ceiling with him. We don't know if he can just reach the pinnacle of the sport, but he's somebody who we're always going to tune into. Mm-hmm. He's somebody who we always know is going to be a fan favorite fight. And he's going to bring the action every single time. So I don't want to say it's a drop in his stock. I think it's just he's taking a different avenue than most fighters are, where they're just like, hey, we're going for gold. I think he knows what he's doing in terms of trying to get fandom, selling his own big mouth brand. I like Kevin Holland, man. And my opinion doesn't really change much of him after this fight. I'm going to tune in to see him fight. I don't think he's going to reach. He's going to crack that top 5. So yeah, it'll be interesting what the UFC has next for him. And that's all I got to say about Big Mouth.
Yeah, no, look, I don't disagree with you, and I think that that's an interesting take. I mean, I think the big difference is when Cowboy Cerrone got in that cage, he was going to win by any means necessary. There was no Cowboy Cerrone never made a gentleman's agreement in his life because it was a fight, and he aimed to win it. And certainly there are some parallels there. The fandom that they have is obviously one. Their willingness to fight anybody anytime seems to be number two. But I think that's kind of where it ends. And I think that's where it ends because I think, what we saw with Cowboy was a guy who derailed his own progress to gold by fighting so often. Cowboy got starched by RDA, but Cowboy had, very little time to take a title fight with RDA very seriously because all Cowboy did was drive around in an RV drinking Budweiser and fighting dudes in a steel cage. He never stopped to actually analyze that career.
Exactly. It's that kind of approach, right? Where it's maybe not as much inside the cage with Cowboy, but outside the cage.
Right. Yeah. A little bit of that people's champion mentality. I think it'll all hinge on, I haven't heard yet. Maybe you have. I don't know if he's going to need surgery on that hand.
I think he is. I think Thompson will need surgery as well. I heard.
Thompson posted a video of his face getting stitched back together. That was gruesome.
No, he broke his hand too.
Did he really?
Yes, he did.
I haven't even heard that yet, but
yep.
Yeah, I mean those surgeries, they derail you. It's easy to get stuck in that wormhole, You have a surgery, you think it's healing, you get back to training, you fuck it up again, you got to stop, But regarding your Wonder Boy point, I mean, I couldn't agree more, right? I think Wonder Boy Leon Edwards is an absolutely amazing fight to make. But if that's not the route the UFC is going to go, if they are not going to eyeball Stephen Thompson towards gold, they're not going to orient his boat that way, then for however many fights you're going to give him, just give us fights with strikers. Don't make me watch him fight grapplers. I have no interest in it. If you're not going to orient him towards a title fight, then just give me interesting striking matchups for Stephen Thompson, and I won't miss a single one of them. It's a solemn promise because it is just so fun to watch that dude fight on the feet. It really is.
Yeah, I wonder kind of what his idea is because he said, just give me strikers. You want to see more of that? Give me strikers. But right. I mean, that 170-pound division is just loaded with grapplers. So it's like you're going to have to cross one of those guys off the list to be a serious contender. It'll be interesting to see what Thompson and his team come up with. But he looked fucking good, man. 40 years old, man. He looked fucking sharp.
He looked stellar. Those spin kicks were just, hearing them over the TV, they just sounded painful.
That heel, man, the way he weaponizes that heel is fucking absurd.
Yeah, holding it down for the Karate Ka homies.
Big time.
Only one doing it. Well, I don't know, John Boy. I heard a rumor there might be fights this weekend. Can you confirm?
Little pay-per-view action.
Little PPV, last one of the year.
Little title fight, little December in Vegas action here.
Well, you want to just start at the top then? You want to just get right into Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev?
Yep. So for those of you who don't know, 205-pound title fight. Belt was vacated by Yuri Prochazka. He had what the UFC PI deems as one of the worst shoulder injuries that they've ever seen. They said, I believe, a 12 to 14 month recovery period. So Yuri, in turn, vacates the belt. Glover Teixeira, his previous opponent, refuses the fight with Magomed Ankalaev.
Hard to blame him.
Interesting enough. I don't blame him at all either. So Jan Blachowicz, Magomed Ankalaev becomes the vacated title fight and the headliner of the card, 5-round bout. Who do you think Vegas likes here?
Come on. I think they like Magomed Ankalaev.
Yeah, and I do too.
Yeah.
Minus 280, Jan Blachowicz plus 240. I think we've seen our Jan Blachowicz title run. I think we've seen his era in the sport. I don't want to say it was fluky, but he had a couple of quick knockouts that he had a great run. He had a great run. We'll leave it at that. I've been saying Magomed Ankalaev is the best 205 pounder on planet Earth for probably 2 years now. And I still feel the same way. He's got one loss on his record, 1 second left. Paul Craig throws up a triangle and snags him. One of the craziest ends of a fight I've ever seen in my entire life. But goddamn, I was watching some Magomed Ankalaev highlights. He's the full package.
Yeah.
Minus 280 is a steep price tag. But outside of Jan just sleeping him, I don't see any other route to victory for him. So with that being said, I think Magomed Ankalaev will be the new 205-pound champion. And I think his title reign could be for a hot minute, maybe till even Yuri gets back.
I don't think Yuri beats him.
I don't either.
I don't think Yuri beats him. I don't think Glover beats him. I don't think Jan beats him. I don't think Alexander Rakic beats him.
I agree, man. I think Magomed Ankalaev is the truth.
Yeah, this guy's he is one of the Dagestani prospects who's I mean, like most of those Dagestani fighters, right? He is just a fucking workhorse in there. He is a tough guy. He has powerful hands.
We haven't really seen him go to the wrestling, which is interesting.
No. Yeah, right? I don't really haven't.
He's piecing people up on the feet. He doesn't even have to pull that out, and we know that's kind of in his back pocket, which is super interesting as well. This is going to be a good one, and look for a reign from this Russian monster in Magomed Ankalaev.
Yeah, I think this is the beginning of the reign of another Dagestani fighter, which tells me we need an American wrestler, but conversation for another day, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about your favorite fighter on the roster? You want to talk about your guy, your number one, your white whale, Paddy the Batty Pimblett?
Big deep breath here. Whew.
Taking on Flash Gordon, Jared Flash Gordon. How do you feel about this one?
What do you think Vegas has got it lined?
I have to imagine the money coming in and the Barstool bump. I have to imagine Paddy's the favorite.
Minus 250.
Okay.
Jared Gordon plus 210. I mean, Paddy's flirting with that Magomed Ankalaev line. They're sitting in the same, numerical value from a betting perspective. But I'm not one to go back on my word. And I'm going to ride Flash Gordon here at plus 210. I don't think Jared Flash Gordon is that good. But I don't think Paddy's that good either. And I think that this is going to be Paddy's toughest test to date. He could clip Gordon and knock him out. I think that would be his best avenue to victory. Gordon's a tough son of a bitch, though. As long as he can keep his chin on, I think Gordon could give him problems, man. I really do. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you that Gordon's not the best. I think Paddy can get this done, but I agree with your sentiment that this is going to be his toughest test yet. I mean, this isn't the part-time Zumba instructor who's hopping in the cage with you. Jared Gordon is a real fucking mixed martial artist, man. He's a tough fucking dude. And I mean his who's who in the UFC isn't the best. It's not the best, but
he's got some decent wins.
Got some decent wins.
Leonardo Santos, who he's coming off of his last win, was a good win. He's got a win. Got a win over Joe Selecki, a split.
Split decision with Joe Selecki, Joe Selecki is a pretty big grappling guy too. So
and what Jared Gordon's last loss is by Charlie Olives.
No, Jared Gordon's last loss is Grant Dawson, which he was beating his ass for the first 2 rounds. Yes.
And then he gets finished in the 3rd round.
Yes, via rear naked.
Yeah.
But correct. Before that, he got knocked out by Chucky Olives.
And Grant Dawson's no slouch either.
No, definitely not a slouch. He's got a win over Bill Algeo.
These are decent wins.
They are decent wins. I'm going to say this, and it's hard. I don't like doing this, but I'm not going to be surprised either way.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where I'm just kind of waiting for the wheels to come off. And
Yeah.
I know it's going to happen, and I don't want to miss my ticket when it does.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'm going to back Jared Gordon at 2-1 as a 2-1 dog here. I think that this is going to be another dogs is barking card.
Yeah, I mean, Patty's getting to that point, man, where the air is going to start getting thin. The higher you climb, the air is only going to get thinner, right? So, I mean, if you make it through Jared Gordon, I'd hate to see who you got to fight next. But I don't think you're going to have a light day at the office getting through fucking Jared Gordon either.
I mean, Jared Gordon's co-maining the last pay-per-view of the year.
Yeah.
Just think about that. Try and wrap your mind around that. Pimblett saying the UFC is not pushing him. He's just the cash cow. Yeah, I get that, but Jared Gordon's co-maining. There's a bunch of guys on this fight card who could easily fill that slot.
Yeah.
So clearly you see where the money is vested in this,
Yeah.
right? That's kind of a common trend. Let's follow the money.
Yeah, and we'll get into that money train a little later on in the podcast because there's some stuff to say about that money train and exactly what it looks like.
This one's a little bit different just because the company is invested in it than that one. That one's a little bit, we'll get into it. But Patty Pimblett, I don't love betting against him just for those reasons, but I'm gonna side with Gordon. I really am.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, if it's not Jared Gordon, I tell you this: somebody's going to derail the Patty train. It's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not Flash Gordon, it probably be the next guy, and if it ain't him, it's going to be the guy after that. But somebody's going to derail this hype train.
I hope it's Aaliyah Taporia, but
we hope it's Ilia Taporia,
who we'll get into down the card a little bit further.
Yeah, we'll get into a little bit more. We got Alex Morano stepping in late notice to fight Santiago Ponzinibbio. This is the fight that Brian Barberina tried to throw his hat in the ring for.
Yeah. Robbie Lawler dropped, undisclosed medical reason. Morano coming in on less than a week, right? Week's notice.
Yeah, less than a week, I guess.
Fuck. This is a tough one to fill in late for.
Yeah.
Stylistically, I've met Santiago Ponzinibbio, hell of a guy. Great style, power puncher. He's going to trade in the pocket all day long, and that's kind of Morano's style as well.
Yeah.
So this is a bad matchup. I'm surprised by the line. I thought it would be a little bit wider. I think you can guess who the favorite is here. But I'm
going to guess it's Ponzinibbio.
At -185, Morano plus 155. I like Ponzinibbio a lot here. I think he knocks out Morano. I think he gets it done. Knocks him out second round.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I mean, obviously Ponzinibbio, he had a 4-year layoff, 3-year layoff between beating Neil Magny, coming back to fight the Leech and losing. And since then, he's gone 3-1, right? So he loses to the Leech, he beats Miguel Baeza, and then he loses 2 split decisions, one to Jeff Neal, one to Michael Pereira. So I don't know that we're looking at the 2017 version of Santiago Ponzinibbio, but in fairness, I don't know that Alex Morano has traded in the pocket, with anybody who's going to hit quite as hard as the Argentine Dagger. I mean, maybe Cowboy, who he did beat back in 2021.
I think it's a little bit of a durability thing too, right? Like I think Morano's more chinny. I think from a technical standpoint, they're pretty even. Pons hits harder and has a good chin on him. So
Pons, yeah, I mean, so Morano's been knocked out twice. Ponzinibbio's been knocked out 3 times.
But Pons has gotten knocked out by like monsters, right?
Yeah. Well, Lorenz Larkin.
Lorenz Larkin used to be the boy back in the day.
Yeah. And then, well, I don't know.
I know Morano's been knocked out by Nico. Who?
Leandro Mafra Teixeira.
This is going back, though.
That's going way back. That's
We're
going
going
2011 back.
Exactly. You're talking a decade here.
Yeah.
Morano's getting sleep by Nico Price, hard hitter. I don't know. I like Pons here. I really do. I think this is his fight to lose, and I'm going to side with the Argentinian fighter here.
I like your faith in Ponzinibbio. I like your faith in the Argentine dagger. So
I'm glad Robbie dropped because I think Santiago kills Robbie Lawler.
At this point, maybe. At this point, maybe. Maybe not 10 years ago. Maybe not even 7 years ago. But maybe now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe now. Maybe ruthless of 2022. Yeah, that's a shame. That's a shame. You want to get into the next one? You want to talk about the homie Darren Till
This is a fun one, man.
taking on Dricus du Plessis?
Yeah, man. I'm happy to see Till back. This is an interesting matchup. Who do you think the odds makers are siding with here?
I think the odds makers, and this is just a guess, but I think the odds makers might be siding with du Plessis.
They are.
Yeah.
Minus 175, Darren Till plus 145. It's one of those things with Darren. It's just like you don't know how he's going to look. He's one of those guys who can kind of look like shit on the scales. And it's a little bit of a wild card with the shape he's going to come into camp.
Yeah.
But from what I've seen, you could wait till weigh-ins to get a little bit more peace of mind. But I'm riding Darren Till here at plus 145. I think he's going to sleep du Plessis. I've seen du Plessis keep that chin up in the air. I've seen him get touched up a little bit. We're talking about a guy who went 5 rounds with Robert Whitaker.
Yeah.
Darren Till. Like, let's not forget that. This guy's been at the pinnacle of the sport for a very long time. I think he's being disrespected at plus 145, plus 150. I'm on Darren Till all day here.
Interesting.
All day.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I got a feeling. I got to lean to du Plessis.
Okay.
I just feel like, I don't know. I mean, in any other day, I wake up in the morning, I hear your logic, and I'm like, yep, absolutely, book it. It's Darren Till. But I don't know. I'm sitting here right now. I'm looking at a 1-4 Till in his last 5 fights.
Mm-hmm.
He seemed like a guy who just cannot get out of his own way lately. We talk about all the time, right? That MMA chin, man. It goes from getting stopped by legit guys to getting stopped by less legit guys. And then, next thing you know, Dricus du Plessis is going to make a name off of you. And I think this is tailor-made for Dricus to go in there and make a name off Darren Till.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that might be the MO for the UFC to go that route with du Plessis, kind of getting that name value, right?
Yeah.
Sticking it on the Patty card. It's the Scouser card.
Right.
I don't know though, man. I'm not ready to count Darren Till out. And du Plessis, just watching him in his last couple of fights, man, I just don't like the way he keeps his chin up in the air. And he's a striker, and that's Darren Till's bread and butter. We saw Darren Till beat Stephen Thompson in Liverpool, although it was a close fight, flip of a coin, could have went either way. I just think when you engage in a striking battle with Darren Till on any given day, he could win that fight. And at plus 150, you're just giving me a reason to bet it. So let's go Darren Till, baby.
Hey, let's go Darren Till. I think the world's a better place with Darren Till in it.
Hell yeah.
I think the MMA world's a better place with Darren Till in it. He's a fun-loving kind of guy. He's a good personality for the sport. He's who was his friendship with?
Hamzat.
It was Hamzat Chimaev, right?
Yep, they were the brothers, man.
Yeah, the brotherhood. So who knows? Maybe Hamzat's going to give him some of that Dagestani blood, send him in there with it. I'll say this: I'm rooting for Darren Till.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was a du Plessis kind of night. That's how I feel.
Okay.
You want to get it to what I think is my main event of the evening?
Yeah, I can't disagree with that at all.
Yeah, you want to talk about the Thug Nasty Bryce Mitchell taking on Ilya Topuria?
Yeah, this is a contender eliminator fight, right? This This is a fucking banger. This is a great fight. On paper, I agree with you. I think this is the main event in my eyes. I think this is the best fight on the card. It's a tough one because I like both guys so much.
Yeah.
That it's hard for me to pick a side. What side do you think Vegas is on now?
I think Vegas is on Bryce Mitchell's side.
Aaliyah Taporia.
Wow. I've been on lately guessing favorites. I've been having a good run lately guessing favorites.
Minus 135. It's a pretty close line. I think they read it right. I don't know if you've seen Aaliyah Taporia highlights, but he hits like Tyson-esque for a 145-pounder. The way he rips the body and he rips the head, he's coming to take your fucking head off. Bryce Mitchell is your hard-working Arkansas boy. Great grappler. We saw he can throw hands. He dropped Barboza. This is a good fucking fight, man. It's a shame that one of these guys have to lose.
Because neither one has.
What? Well, Bryce Mitchell did lose to Chris Katona, or Brad Katona, sorry, on the Ultimate Fighter, which isn't counted in your record. It was a 2-round bout.
Right.
So there is a little bit of an asterisk there. But yeah, Bryce Mitchell technically hasn't lost. Aaliyah Taporia undefeated. I think both of these guys at 145 pounds smoke Paddy Pimblett at 155, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, no.
Fuck, I am so torn here. I really am. It's one of these ones where it's like, maybe just take a flyer because he's an underdog.
I got to tell you, I'm riding with Thug Nasty.
Yeah, there's something in me that's agreeing with you.
And I wouldn't have been, I don't think, because we've obviously spoken about Ilia Taporia at length and the absolute murderer that he is.
Mm-hmm.
Until Thug Nasty went in there and handled business with Edson Barboza.
Yeah.
I mean, look, talk about Tyson-esque hands, talk about this, talk about that. I am hard-pressed to find anybody who hits you harder with any part of their body than Edson Barboza hits. I mean, Edson Barboza is built out of baseball bats, for Christ's sake. I mean, that guy hits harder than any human being has a right to with his legs. And Bryce Mitchell handled fucking business with Edson Barboza. So I'm riding with Thug Nasty.
He had his way in the grappling department, and that's always been a deficiency with Barboza, right?
Yeah.
So Poria supposedly has some pretty legit wrestling chops. That's the only thing.
I think we're going to find out.
I guess that's really what we're going to learn. We're going to see if Taporia can weather the storm. Dude, it's such a fun fight, man.
It is.
That is such a good fight. I wouldn't be surprised if Taporia slept him, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mitchell weathered the storm and then grapple fucked him.
Yeah,
it's one of those ones where it could just be a war of attrition. If Aaliyah can't get him out of there early, kind of Mitchell will prevail in the end.
I think that's right.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's my lean on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna side with Bryce Mitchell, and you know how much of an Aaliyah Taporia truther I am.
You are truly an Aaliyah Taporia truther.
I really, really like him. I think they're both really good prospects, and I think they're both going to be in the top 5 and in the top 5 for a while. It's a shame that one of these guys have to take an L, but I'll lean Mitchell, but I do not love it at all. I'd stay away from this one, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show with this one.
Yeah, this is one of those fights to just enjoy as a fight fan. It really is, because you're right. It could go so many different ways. For both of these guys, it has the possibility of going bad at a moment's notice. And you just don't know, right? Does Bryce come in with an early takedown and grapple fuck Taporia for a round or two and take all of his juice and then catch him with something, right? Does Taporia come in and do Taporia things and hit this man with a brick upside his head and knock that boy back to Arkansas? I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. As a fight fan, I'm looking forward to finding out. I'm not going to put money anywhere near it, though.
No, and you nailed it. You nailed it right on the head, right? It's one of those ones where it's a fight fan's wet dream, but it's a bettor's nightmare because there's so many moving parts. There's so many variables of what could happen for both guys. Both guys are so skilled everywhere. You got to
Yeah.
lay off it, but damn, hell of a fight. Okay. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, you got to just leave this one alone.
Is that the opener?
Is it?
Does that open the main card? One,
It
two.
wouldn't surprise me if that was the curtain jerker. I mean, that'll get your ass in your seat.
Yep, that's the opener.
Man, that is just such a good fight. That is such a fun fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, decent little main card here on Saturday. I like it.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, listen, this is one worth tuning into. I think it's a weird one to bet. And I think that's we've kind of leaned on that, right? It's, other than the main event, we have talked about how every fight could kind of go either way. There's potential for it to go either way, and there's reasonable arguments to be made for it going either way. So I don't know. This might be one where you put the DK away. Maybe you put FanDuel down for the night. You put that phone face down. You give the missus a kiss on the forehead. You tell her, "Hey, I love you." But me and the boys are going to go get rowdy at Miller's tonight. We got Captain Jack's chocolate pounders and chocolate lava cakes coming to the table all night. We're throwing back Mike's Hard Lemonade like it's going out of stock.
Holy
That's it.
shit.
We'll be bellied up to the bar at Miller's Ale House, babe. Come pick me up at 1 after the post-fight show.
Don't tempt me with a good time now, Zach. Don't tempt me with a good time.
Love you, mean it. I'm out. Well, we got to talk about the featured prelim. Obviously, there's a Philadelphian in the featured prelim, so we're gonna have to talk about it. I don't know what to say about it, but we should talk about it. You want to talk about Jairzinho Biggie Boy Rosenstruck taking on Chris Daukaus?
Yeah. I'll talk about it all day. I don't think you want to hear what I have to say, though.
Look,
you didn't last week, and that panned out.
Yeah, that's where we are.
This week, whew, them Daukaus brothers are getting a tough shake.
That is just rough sledding. Just rough sledding.
This line sticks out to me. There are two more fights under this where the lines I think are misdone. I think that Vegas has a misread on it. But guess who the favorite is in this one?
It's not Daukaus, is it?
No, it's Rosenstruik, but he's only minus 160. And Daukaus
I guess I could see that. I mean, he's lost 3 out of his last 4.
Oh, but to all just murderers.
Yeah. Curtis Blades, Alex Volkov, Cyril Gahn, Francis Ngannou before that. No, absolutely. I hear you, but it is still 3 out of his last 4. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know.
It pains me to say this.
No, I know. Just pull the Band-Aid off.
Yeah, I think Rosenstruik is gonna make quick work. I think he's gonna make it look ugly. We'll say that much.
I ride with Philly until the wheels come off. So I'm gonna ride with Chris Daukaus, obviously.
The wheels might fucking come off here. So.
But the wheels might just
Caution.
come off. I had a great convo with the boy Timmy G on Saturday. And we both kind of reached the same conclusion. The Daukaus brothers are great fighters.
Oh yeah, no, they are.
You got to be a little greater than great to hang around in the UFC for a long time. Yeah. And these guys they're great fighters. They're a credit to Philly MMA. There are another 2 names on the Philly MMA roster who have made it to the big show, have done us proud. But when you got guys like Biggie Boy Rosenstruck, who just every punch is with bad intentions,
like an 87 or like an 89-7 kickboxer.
Yeah.
Suriname kickboxer.
11 knockouts in the sport of MMA. I believe
he's knocked out 60 men unconscious in kickboxing.
Yeah, I mean that's a terrifying human being, right? That's who kids check under their bed for at night, right? I mean, this is a monster.
And,
They write fairy tales about monsters like this shit.
and it's just another stylistic thing too, right? Like Dawkins likes to stand and bang.
Yeah,
He doesn't wrestle.
you don't want to
So
bang. This is not the dude to bang with.
this is like the last guy you want to stand and bang with. So the official 10-8 pick is going to be Jairzinho, Biggie Boy, Rosenstreich.
The unofficial 10-8 pick, the pick with our heart, is for Chris Dawkins. He's going to go in there. He's going to throw a berimbolo. He's going to get a hold of a limb and he's going to snatch it. That's what he's going to do. He's secretly been getting his grappling ready to go, and he's going to unveil it at this fight.
Okay.
There you go. There's your unofficial pick, the people's pick, the
Okay.
underground pick for the underground kings, the Philly Kings. Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough night of work for Dawkins, man. I wouldn't want to be Chris Dawkins. That's a tough night's work.
That's a tough one, man.
But hey, I'm pulling for him. Philly, always going to pull for him, and that is what it is. You know, we'll see where it shakes out. We got right after that. This one's kind of interesting. We got Raul Rosas is making his official UFC debut.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting because Raul Rosas, and for anybody listening to this, I hope I don't hurt your feelings, just turned 18. Actually competed on Dana White's Contender Series as a 17-year-old. Had to get parental consent, right? Like had to get like a permission slip to compete on Dana White's Contender Series, and did, and won. And not only won, but absolutely clowned his opponent, Mando Gutierrez. Won a unanimous decision, but when I tell you that he controlled this man, I think in a crucifix for most of the fight, just crucifix position, just wore on him, had him in a lot of deep submissions. This kid Raul Rosas is just really interesting. I don't know too much else about him. He's 6-0, which is also insane because he didn't start that amassing that record until November of 21, which is a year ago. So he was 17, I guess, when he made his debut, and he's fought 6 times this year. But this is an interesting kid.
Yeah. Grappler heavy guy.
Yeah.
Grinder. From what I've seen in Contender Series. Jay Perrin, though, is a tough cookie. He's no slouch. I mean, they didn't exactly give him an easy layup here. The line's interesting. Who do you think the favorite is here?
Well, given that Jay Perrin has never won in the UFC and lost his Contender Series fight, I'm going to say Raul Rosas should be the favorite.
Minus 230.
Okay.
Jay Perrin is plus 190, so you'd be correct. This is an interesting one, right? This is going to come down to, can Jay Perrin stop the wrestling?
Yeah.
Right? That's the big question mark. I am not going to bet on an 18-year-old that's 6-0 at minus 230 probably ever. There's just, right? It's just, there's too many questions. There's too many questions. I haven't seen enough. I'm going to side with Perrin here at plus 190. I think he could clip him. I think he could hurt him if he can stay on the feet. And I think he knows Rosas's game plan, right? He knows what he's going to do. So it's like they had a camp to prepare for it. I'm going to side with the more of a vet here at the plus money and see if that ticket will cash. So.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else for Rosas, right? Like this is now a grown man's sport. This isn't, whatever I think it was a Mexican fight league that he had a lot of his MMA fights in before the UFC. Like you're in the UFC now. Mm-hmm. This is a real man fight. It'll be interesting. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I don't know that it answers any question marks though for Rosas. So I think this is kind of just to get his feet wet. I mean, if he loses, then I think we know, okay, maybe this is a little bit too soon for this kid. Maybe he needs to go, Bellator or something for a few years, or some other lower promotion, and get his weight up. But if he wins, I mean, you're beating Jay Perrin, who has never won in the UFC. So I don't know that anybody's going to be like high on the Rosas stock after this fight. So that kind of sucks for him. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting, I guess. Do you know that Rosas made his amateur MMA debut at, I think, 15 years old?
That's fucking absurd. I've heard him speak. He's definitely 18. We'll say that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those ones where it's like, ooh, this might be too much too soon. I just want to see one thing very quickly. Yeah, but I mean, Jay Perrin, right? Like you said, no wins in the UFC, but he fought Mario Bautista
Yeah.
to a 3-round decision. And then his last fight against the Mongolian murderer,
Yeah.
he went all 3 rounds with. So, like, talk about 2 tough fights for Perrin. And then he gets Rosas Jr., and he's a big dog coming in. Interesting. I'm going to side with Perrin here, though. I'm going to go with my
Yeah.
initial.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I mean, what else can you say, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who else you want to talk about? We could talk about Billy Q.
Yeah, there's 2 fights in particular that I want to dive into.
Let's hear it.
And now that I'm looking at it, this is interesting. They're both lined the exact same, and I think they should be flipped, the odds.
Let me hear it.
Billy Q
Mm-hmm.
versus Alexander Hernandez.
Yup.
Who do you think the favorite is?
I'm going to say the favorite is Hernandez.
It's Billy Q.
Okay.
And I agree with you. I think Alex Hernandez should be the favorite in this spot.
Yeah.
I think he's better everywhere than Billy Q. I think Hernandez's weak spot is against guys who can crack on the feet when he can't take them to the ground, right? We saw that with Cerrone. We saw it with Drew Dober. Billy Q's not one of those guys that can crack on the feet. He's a volume guy, and he's a good grappler. Hernandez is a monster. He's a tough motherfucker. He's got a good gas tank. He hits hard, and he's really only susceptible to big shots. Alex Hernandez at plus 145. I love that line, and I think that's a good play. I don't know if you can get to that, but I'm going to side with Alex Hernandez here. I love the matchup for him.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I agree with you. Who else?
Joaquin Buckley, Chris Curtis.
Okay. The action man.
Who do you think the favorite is here?
I'm going to say the favorite is Joaquin Buckley.
It is.
Okay.
And I disagree with it.
Okay, let's hear it.
I think Chris Curtis should be the favorite here. I think Chris Curtis is the better fighter. It's lined the exact same way as the Billy Q Alex Hernandez fight. Chris Curtis plus 145, Alex Hernandez as well as plus 145. I think Curtis is the real deal. He's only been knocked out once in his entire MMA career, and that was against Ray Cooper in PFL. He also fought twice that night. I don't know if anybody remembers. He fought, and then PFL was like, we don't have anybody to fight Ray Cooper, so you're going to need to wrap your hands for the second time tonight and step in the ring with the guy who ended up winning the PFL championship that year. I think Joaquin Buckley's a hype train. I think his only route to victory is a knockout here, and I just don't see him getting it done. Chris Curtis and Alex Hernandez at plus money just speak to me.
Yeah, I can see it. Other than his last loss to Jack Hermanson, I mean, he's done pretty well in the UFC, right? Knocked out Phil Hawes, knocked out Brandon Allen, win over Rodolfo Vieira, decision. I don't have any reason to disagree with you. I really don't. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted some dogs or bark in action on the prelims, those are probably two good places to look for it.
Yeah, I think, and also too, now that I look at it again, here we go. Darren Till's plus 145 too. All of these dogs that I like have the same exact number.
Are you saying that you would rock that into a 3-dog parlay?
Yes.
Interesting. Now that's interesting.
That would be juice. You're talking juice box central. I mean,
that gets the people going.
Yeah, type that into DraftKings and see what that number pulls up at. But yeah, man, I like that. I like that a lot. I think that those guys are a good bang for your buck. I really do.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough, John Boy. Well, want to talk about the news of the week? Is there any other fights you want to talk about?
I mean, Edmund Shabazian's coming back
He is.
against Dolce Lungiambula.
Yeah.
I don't know. Minus 290. I don't know if I care too much about it. I could see Dolce actually sleep Shabazian. I don't really care. I think we did a solid assessment of UFC 282. I think we found our spots, and if you want to roll with those spots, let's roll. I think we can get into the news. I think it's that time.
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's break it down here. Well, first little piece of news. I'll plug my homie Fabian Josa one more time. She fights on Art of War, making her MMA debut this weekend, Saturday, December 10th. If there's like a stream up or something, maybe John or I'll tweet that out. She's a murderer. She's one of the sweetest people in the world, but she's also an absolute fucking killer. I think ranked number 2 in the world for combat sambo. Just a tough customer. Apparently, according to her friends at the gym, cannot be choked out. So big shout out to the homies at NPR MMA. Big shout out to Fabes. Go get them. And all right, that was the nice piece of news. That was our moment of niceness. Shout out to a friend. We did that. Let's enjoy that karmic bliss for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see Patty Pimblett talking to Dana White?
Uh-oh. The Dana White Ariel Helwani beef has peaked. Is it crazy to say that? Because they've had a long beef in the past, but
I wouldn't say it's peaked because Ariel hasn't been banned from UFC events again yet.
I think that pimple is starting to come to a head again. I don't know. We both have a similar opinion on Ariel Helwani. He's okay. He's a clout trout. We get it. He's doing his own thing. Essentially, the breakdown, you want me to get into it? Or you want to take it over here?
You fill in any spots that I miss.
Okay.
You sent this to me, so you might be able to fill in anything I miss. But essentially, Dana White and Patty Pimblett sit down on somebody's podcast. Whose podcast?
I believe it was Patty's.
Okay. I didn't even know Patty had a podcast.
I did not either.
There's only so much Liverpool accent. There's only so much Scouse accent I can fucking listen to. So good to know that I don't need to tune into that fucking podcast ever.
Yeah.
But essentially, Dana White sits down with his cash cow, I guess, on his own podcast, letting everybody know that there's no favoritism in the UFC. He's decided to be a guest on Patty's show. And the two of them, I guess, started by Patty, really decided to just absolutely take a dump on Ariel Helwani. Patty's upshot was essentially that Ariel Helwani is a clout chaser, not a real journalist, is a content creator, that he begs people for interviews, and that then he claims journalistic integrity when he says he won't pay him for those interviews. Dana White, who has long hated Ariel Helwani, sat back and enjoyed it and clapped for it and cheered it on and called him a piece of shit and a maggot, and I think some worse things than that, but those are the two that jump to mind right now.
Yeah.
Was that an essentially correct breakdown of part 1?
Yeah, no, it was. That is definitely laying the foundation for kind of this drama.
So of course there was a part 2. Ariel did have a response. Do you want to give the breakdown for the response?
I mean, essentially, Patty reached out to Ariel, wanted an interview, but Patty's manager said, "Hey, we have interviews with Barstool and Howlerhead, and they're paid interviews." So the thing for me is Patty's reaching out to Ariel, right? Ariel's not saying, "Hey, Patty, come on my show." Patty wants the publicity, so in turn, he reaches out to Ariel, but then he wants compensation to go on the show. I don't agree with that per se. You want to kind of give your take on the whole situation?
Well, here's what, and I have not watched all of Ariel's clapback yet, but I was able to listen to at least the first clip of it, which is, Patty calls up Ariel and leaves him a voicemail and is all fucking buddy and, oh, hey, I'd love to come on your show. Oh, I'd love to have a sit down with you, Ariel. Oh, I'd love to be here, and I'm going to be in New York on these dates and these dates. And Ariel, of course. How did you feel about that? Was that decent? Was that a decent impression?
We definitely need to do some work.
But there's a baseline.
But I love the effort. I love the full commitment, and that's what's really key is just fully, just diving in head first.
That's it, right? All Scousers don't get knocked out, lad.
There you go.
It's getting better. I'm gonna continue to work on it. I'll be back in a few weeks. But basically leaves this buddy voicemail for Ariel Helwani, right? Like, oh, I'm going to be in New York on these dates. Let's sit down. Let's do something. Meaning you've made the conscious decision to reach out to Ariel Helwani to ask him if you can be on his show.
Mm-hmm.
Ariel writes back and is like, yeah, obviously you can be on my show, Patty. You're one of the biggest names in MMA right now. Let's set something up. Patty says, okay, you have to set it up with my manager. I'm bad with time management, so let him kind of just tell you when I can sneak it in. And the manager writes back, Patty's got paid interviews, so if you want to send over a budget, we can fit something else in, but otherwise he's got to go where the money is.
Mm-hmm. Did
you think Ariel was going to pay you? Why did you reach out? First of all, why is your manager fighting that battle for you?
Mm-hmm.
I would have never assumed that, and I'm not Ariel Helwani, but I've known about his show forever in all of its many iterations. I would have never assumed that any of these guests got paid to be on his show.
No.
That's ridiculous. It's a fucking podcast. Who gets paid to be on a fucking podcast? But why did you reach out to him then, all fucking buddy? Let me be on your show. Let me get on the MMA Hour, and then have your manager say, yeah, you got to fucking pay us for the privilege first. That's issue number one.
Mm-hmm.
Issue number two, getting away from the fact that Dana White is on Patty Pimblett's fucking podcast, which is fucking ridiculous, is Dana White is now relishing this opportunity to sit down and shit on Ariel Helwani and call him a thief and call him a money grubbing piece of shit and all this other stuff, as if he hasn't been forcing these guys to register as independent contractors, taking away their ability to market and advertise, and then strong-arming them into 6-fight contracts for the last 10 fucking years. So that's just pot kettle hypocrisy right there.
Yeah.
And lastly, point 3, Ariel Helwani is what we would have said growing up in New York. We would have called him a nudge. It's a nudge. It's a pain in the ass. He's,
a mort.
He's a clout chaser. Yes, he's absolutely a clout chaser. He's kind of an annoying interview to listen to. Absolutely. I tune into I don't ever, first of all, the MMA Hour is like a 4-hour show. I don't ever listen to the whole thing. 1, because I don't have that kind of time in my life. And 2, because I don't like Ariel Helwani enough to listen to 4 hours of his content. But he has interesting people on there. They talk about interesting things. And, love him or hate him, Ariel Helwani has been around this sport for fucking ever. Forever, man. And he's not, I don't think, malicious. I don't think he's like an evil doer. I don't think he's, Patty and Dana seem to be having a conversation that any other 2 UFC fighters could have had. And if you asked me to guess who the subject was, I would have guessed it was Dana White. Right? All the things they said about Ariel being a fucking, money grubbing piece of shit, and he's just out here clout chasing, and he's just out here content creating and forcing people to do things for free. I'd have been like, sounds like they're kind of talking about the president of the UFC. Which I'm sure this guarantees that I will never get a press pass for any UFC event. But I just overall could not have found that to be an icy or cold take from either of those 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think in this particular instance, Ariel is completely right. I think you could have found a different hill to die on as Patty Pimblett. This is not the argument that I'd be bringing to court if I'm Patty. I guess the they're like trying to belittle him for making money. Like it's his fucking job, right? Like that's what he does. He does this to make a living. Like exploiting fighters is a reach, is an extreme reach.
On a good day, that's a reach.
Yeah, an extreme reach. The one thing that I will say is Ariel does have an awfully big mouth talking about fighter compensation. I don't know if he has a fundraiser or a foundation that, allocates some pay to fighter camp. I don't know enough about him to get into that, nor should he feel responsible to do that. But for somebody who complains about the pay so much and is in that field, maybe he could do a little bit more, right? Like let's not throw rocks in glass houses, although Patty and Dana have clearly crossed the line with that. I can see it from two different angles, but in this particular instance, Ariel did nothing wrong, man.
No, and I mean, look, yeah, in a perfect world, if Ariel Helwani had some way to funnel fighters money, I think that'd be a great thing. But at the end of the day, he's
kind of doing that.
Yeah, well, one, he's kind of doing that by putting these guys on his show. He's putting out 2 4-hour shows per week. Each one is averaging like 6 fighters per show.
Mm-hmm.
So he's putting them out there. And look, it's not like these guys are being forced to do something for exposure, right? Most of them call in or Zoom in. They sit down, they talk to Ariel. Ariel kind of fangirls over him, kind of fumbles over his words, kind of makes some scorching cold points where you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? But he has his show. The show is successful. Fighters get on it. I mean, there's fucking and Dana White, who banned him from UFC events, which was the biggest crock of bullshit ever, now wants to sit here and fucking badmouth this guy who truly is, whether you love him or hate him, he's just a fairly innocuous figure, right? Like he's harmless. He does the MMA hour. That's what he does. That's like all he does. This guy fucking loves MMA. This is the chosen sport that he talks about. I think Ariel Helwani is a smart guy. I think when he speaks about MMA, I think he's very educated on the sport. I don't think he's out here who's somebody who's creating bad content and doing bad things for the sport. And truthfully, and this this might be a place where some other people find it to be a hot take. I think Ariel Helwani is a force of good for the sport, right? He's not one of the tap out guys from years ago. He's not decked out in affliction, hawking energy drinks and, weird shit like that. I mean, he is a thoughtful, thought out person who discusses the sport of MMA. And I think that adds some legitimacy to the sport, especially when there is still a large portion of, the general public that thinks that MMA is absolute barbarism. To have a guy like Ariel Helwani kind of proves that that's not the case. So I think there is some argument for the legitimacy that he brings to the sport. But now in the year of our Lord 2022, we're going to reignite the Helwani beef. Also, Patty, this isn't the fight that you should be worried about. This is not the fight that you shouldn't be worried about Ariel Helwani. You should be worried about Jared Flash Gordon, my brother.
Yeah. It's interesting to see if anything more will come out on Patty's end, why that kind of rubbed him the wrong way as much as it did to kind of make it that big of a topic. I mean, we know that Dana's going to run with it just because of his disdain for Ariel. But I mean, I get where Dana's coming from, right? It's not another yes man. It's somebody who covers the sport of UFC, who makes a living off of it and basically just shits on the president. So like, I get where Dana's coming from. I get where Ariel's coming from. It's a sticky situation, but you're right. You need somebody who's not going to be a yes man and who's going to kind of go off and do his own thing. I think that's important. I think that it makes things a little bit more transparent when everybody's not just all on the same page with every single opinion. It's an interesting thing. We'll see if any more information comes out, because there's something telling me that there might be a little bit more to it that Ariel's not leading on, but we'll see.
I guess we're going to find out one way or the other. I guess we're going to find out. I will say, from what I have seen, doesn't seem like Ariel's fucking hiding anything. Sounds like Patty called him for an interview and then his management team got mad that he wasn't getting paid for it. Bro, nobody gets paid for the MMA hour. It's a fucking talk show.
Yeah. No, you're right. Don't reach out to him too. It's
Yeah,
like, what the fuck?
fucking dumb. But
Agreed.
uh I guess in lighter news, you see Dustin Poirier almost lost his foot.
Yeah, man. Staph is real. That's a nasty thing, man. The antibiotics weren't working. I think he's doing good though now. The
He got to
picture
the hospital.
the picture is as grotesque as it comes.
Oh,
Um, and then him and McGregor trading barbs on Twitter still. Dustin tweeting from the hospital bed. Gotta love that. That's just who they are.
and
Nate Diaz.
who jumps in the middle?
Nate
Your
Diaz
boy,
chiming
Nathan
in.
Diaz, Stockton motherfucker.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised, motherfucker. Um, yeah, that's hilarious, just top to bottom hilarious, except for the staph infection in Poirier's foot, which I hope they've gotten rid of, because that's nasty business. So yeah, that's a PSA for everybody. Shower regularly, wash your fucking ass. Don't go to the gym fucking stinking and leaving fucking shit to infect other people with. Um, Last piece of news, and I think you might be our local authority on this one. Can you tell everybody what's going on with James Krause? What the fuck?
It's going to be a sticky situation when you're betting on fights and you're cornering the fighters you're betting on, right? Like, I don't think that could have ever ended well. Right? Like him going on Ariel Helwani's show and talking about him betting on fighters, that raises a ton of red flags. It's heavily, no other, you can't do that in any other sport, right?
And
So
I
it's like,
said that 6 months ago. I was like, this doesn't seem like a good look to me.
yeah, and I mean MMA is different. I think fighters should be able to bet on themselves. I do. I will stand by that. But it's a lot different when you're a coach and you know medical issues that are wrong with fighters that you're cornering. You have access to insider information that everybody else doesn't, and that changes the integrity of everything that's going on. That's what's raising the red flags. And yeah, man, if you're cornered by James Krause, they're not allowing you to fight in the UFC anymore.
Yeah.
He's going to get dropped by a lot of big guys. Brandon Moreno is one of them, right? He's one of the main corner guys for Brandon Moreno. Sticky situation for Krause. They'll probably nail him to the cross on this.
They're
That's
gonna
kind
have
of,
to.
that's what it looks like. He's going to kind of be the one that they make an example of. I don't know too much. I don't know too much more other than just odd line changes, very weird, mysterious line changes in pre-lead ups to the fight that point all roads to some sticky information, some weird shit going on behind the scenes. But yeah, it's not great for Krause.
It really all does come down to the Derek Minor fight, right? Where, as it turned out after the fact, Derek Minor was, compromised going in there. And
Yep.
then it came out that his opponent may have known that information before the fight.
And this is the integral thing, right? This is the thing for me that makes it a huge fucking no-no and a huge difference, where you're giving information to go against your own guys, right? If you're betting against your own fighter, I honestly do not see any problem with that. But once you start deliberating and giving information about your own guys, and to give people a leeway to go the other way, that's some sticky shit. And I understand where that can be a little bit of a gray area and a little bit fucked up. But yeah, no, you can't be doing that, man.
Well, right. And at the end of the day, and look, on its face, I'm inclined to agree with you. On the face value, if you are fighter A and you're fighting fighter B and you really believe in yourself, yeah, bet on yourself. Bet on yourself to win, right? That sounds wholesome and American and really stick-to-itiveness, rugged individual. But in this sport, it's, first of all, I mean, MMA is still one of the more accessible sports, meaning like you can just show up to an MMA gym right now and you might see UFC fighters who are in the top 15, top 10, whatever the case may be. You might just see them, right? You're not going to go to LA Fitness tonight to lift weights and be next to Tom Brady or Mike Evans. Not going to happen. But you could go, you can just go sign up, I believe, for American Top Team, right? You can go sign up for one of these MMA gyms to work out, to get in shape. My dumb ass was around Pat Sabatini all night. Tonight, this evening, I was around Patrick Sabatini, who is I think a stellar UFC prospect. It's that level of accessibility still exists in the sport because it hasn't taken off like other sports have. Because of that, I think there exists the likelihood that if fighter A is betting on himself, he might know something about fighter B. He might know if this guy broke his toe in training. Does this guy have a nagging shoulder injury? Is this guy's ACL hanging on by a shoestring? Is this guy's fucking girlfriend leaving him? Whatever the case may be, you might know information that you wouldn't know in other sports. So when you bet on yourself, I think it becomes impossible for us to guarantee the integrity of that bet.
Especially too when these guys are on 12 and 5 show contracts, right? Where you're making 12,000 a show and 12,000 to win, where your incentive is like, well, wait a minute. If I go, you know what I mean? You're talking where the money isn't that great with these low bottom end things. Oh. And you see this all the time in overseas with soccer and certain leagues with throwing matches. You'll probably see it in the NCAA. We got the NIL deals coming out and stuff like that. But the incentive is there for some fucking sticky shit. So I get that. I really do. And I understand how that's a gray area. And I understand why the UFC is doing what they're doing to protect the integrity of the sport. You have to do that because once you think it's a sham like boxing, it's downhill from there.
It's over.
Yeah. So
boxing's never recovered.
No, it hasn't. And you need to set these guidelines. You need to have people know that this stuff is legit. This is honest sport. Like this is the real deal. There's no shady shit going on here. So I agree with what the UFC is doing. I mean, I think Krause should have handled it way better, but who am I to judge? That's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Krause should have just fucking known better. Even if you didn't think you were doing anything wrong in the world, you had to know that somebody else was going to look at it and think you are. I mean, I think if we were to look at this from a 3,000-mile high view, if we were to really look down on it, I think there is something suspicious. Well, I'm not going to say suspicious. I think there's something fugazi in, these guys are making no money to fight. Yeah. The MMA coaches are not getting rich either because they're dependent on these fighters to pay them to coach them, right? These guys are getting no money to fight. They can't advertise anymore. There was a time where you could just paint your shorts in advertisements for companies that would back you and pay you to fight. They can't do that anymore. These guys have really no other way other than the UFC tit to make money for themselves. And now that the UFC is worried their bottom dollar might get hurt because they're hawking DraftKings every Saturday night. John Anik's telling us to fucking make sure we download DraftKings every fucking Saturday. Now the UFC wants to get involved and crucify Krause. I'm not saying Krause is right, but I'm not saying the UFC is fucking right either. These motherfuckers ain't altruistic in what they're doing. They don't give a fuck about the integrity of the sport. They don't give a fuck about fighter pay. They care about their fucking bottom dollar.
Follow the money, baby.
TJ Dillashaw retired. Did you see that?
Yeah. You know why guys retire, Zach?
Tell me.
Get him out of the USADA testing pool. That's why.
Bingo.
He's got to get that deer antler spray going for the shoulder. It'll help the rehab a little bit. That doesn't fool me. He'll be back. He'll be back in a year. He'll be back in 6 months. He needs to juice up on a couple more PEDs. Whatever helps get the body right, and we'll see DJ Dillashaw again. Believe that.
Yeah, he's on the McGregor sabbatical.
Bingo.
Take a little time off, getting that deer antler, getting some trend, some D-ball maybe.
Yep.
Really heal that shoulder up nice with the best pharmaceuticals money can buy. Yeah, he'll be back.
Agreed.
He'll be back. Fuck, Jesus. Anything else, John Boy?
No, it was a long one. We dotted all of our I's, crossed all of our T's. and we're ready to get into the weekend and see this banger of a card, man. We're gonna have a new 205-pound champion at the end of the day.
That's it. We're ready. We're ready. So I guess there's nothing else to say, guys, except call your mother. Tell her you love her. We out.
Peace.